Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a good break. So today we are going to be talking about the functions of Vladimir Prop. And that sounds like a mouthful, but hopefully we'll be able to make it more understandable. You're probably familiar with this from the book passage on the same subject, but I'm going to try and approach it in a way that's even more understandable, let's say, because it definitely is a lot to wrap your head around. But so far, in the first half of this class, we discussed specific myths and we discussed kind of the themes of the myths, like gender roles and fertility and immanence and transcendence and creation and destruction. But now in the second half of the class, what we are doing is we are looking at theories of myth. So how do you analyze these things? Can we come up with ways to sort of look at the different patterns in these myths and use those patterns to understand them on a deeper level? And so that's part of our reason for discussing fairy tales, because we have an author called Vladimir Prop who did just that with fairy tales. So you basically take the structure of a fairy tale and use that to understand it. And I think some of his techniques can be applied to myth. When we look at mythic theories, we're going to see some stuff that's very similar to the work of Vladimir Prop. So all this is kind of come together. So I'm going to kind of walk us through that today. But on top of that, just a couple of announcements. So there's a lot of resources for Vladimir Prop. So I am looking here specifically. This is this is props functions. This is the content page for today. There's a lot of stuff in here. I made a page of everything that's coming up this week, everything that's due, because that's been helpful in my other classes. So check that out if you want. Then we've also got the reading check, and we've got these handouts. So these two handouts right here are going to be super useful. They are going to be what we use to keep checking back on a prop system. This will be sort of our cheat sheet for a prop system. One is more, it goes into more detail, and the other is sort of a simplification. And then we've got the upcoming discussion for later today. I've also got a lot of fairy tales here, and these will be fairy tales that you will use in the discussion for today. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, one thing I did want to mention before we do anything else, it seems like there was some confusion around this. What I would like you guys to do before we meet on Thursday is give feedback to one of your classmates on your classmate's essay. So I got all of your essays. I gave you guys some feedback, which you can find in the assignments, activities assignments page. But I also would like to give you guys the chance to give feedback to each other. So if we scroll down here in the announcements page, we can see, yes, we are still sharing. We can see the different groups here. So if you were to say go to your particular group, what you should be able to find is your classmates' essays. So we'll just wait for it to load in a little bit here. So you can find these different essays that were posted by your classmates, and what you would do is you would click on one of them to read it. Then you can go a couple different ways. You can go to the groups page, or you can go to the discussions page, and you will find a unique discussion for your group. In that discussion, post your feedback for one of your classmates. You can pick one. You don't have to do everybody if you get overwhelmed. But you will have the chance to post your unique feedback for one of your classmates. A couple of people have done this already, but I'm looking for more. So ideally, if you guys can get that by Thursday, basically just read the essay and answer these 4 questions. What do you think was done well in this essay? Was there anything you think could be improved? Was there anything you found confusing? And did this essay use a citation in the right ways? All of those things I find are very helpful for people who are revising their essays. Eventually, you guys are going to revise these essays and turn them in again. So that's a date that's coming up. But first, you will have this opportunity to get feedback. So your grade for the essay is really 3 parts. One part is the original essay you turned in. The second part that counts for your grade is posting any sort of feedback to one of your fellow classmates. And then the third part is turning in the revised essay. And of course, your own work will be the most weighted, but it is necessary to post at least a little bit of feedback for your classmates, because I want you all to be able to learn from each other. So that's the plan there. That's the overall plan. So I've extended the date to Thursday, but by Thursday, I'm hoping to see everybody post feedback for somebody else. Okay, so that's the basics there on the announcements. Let's dispense with that, and let's go back to our content page here. And let's take a look at these. Well, let me start with a broader question, actually, while this is loading. So I'm going to switch over to the notes page here. So if we were to try and make a list of everything that happened in fairy tales, how would we do it? We kind of got a little bit close to this when we were analyzing what are fairy tales and how do they work. So, we were listing things like things that appear in fairy tales. You have princes, you have princesses. Have to spell that there. You have, you have evil witches. You also have things like transformations. You have talking animals. You have magical items, maybe including magical swords. You have helpful old ladies. You have castles. You have young heroic protagonists. So what we might notice if we start listing out things like this is that some of these categories overlap. For instance, you can overlap sort of the young protagonist with the prince or the princess. You can have the evil witches and other types of villains fall into the same category. The talking animals and helpful old ladies or helpful old men can all be kind of put in the same category. You can put magical items all in the same category. Castles can kind of be put with other obstacles to the hero's success. And the princess can be the reward. And you can kind of tie that to the idea of a wedding at the end of the story. So if we make a list like this, we can start boiling the categories down and see how they overlap. And I'm sure you guys could probably come up with an even bigger list than all this. But this is just sort of an example for how that process might work. So if we were trying to reduce it to the core, like say, Snow White has an evil queen, Sleeping Beauty has the evil fairy, we can put them under the category of villains. We can put all villains together. If we do stuff like that, we'd probably end up with some core ideas and core tropes. I kind of think there would be two categories of tropes here. We would have characters and we'd have events, to boil it down to, the absolutely most essential side of things. So there's a sort of core cast of characters and there's a core set of things that could happen in a fairy tale. And, there is some variation in different fairy tales, but a lot of them really seem to fit this framework rather well. So this is the process undertaken by Vladimir Prop. So in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at Prop's specific functions, and then we will look at how he applies those functions. We'll look at some examples of using them, and I'll kind of walk you through that whole process there. All right, so this is our sort of preview, and then next video we'll really get into it.